Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis, and this show is the 15th segment in the series on the network of global corporate control. For those who are just listening for the first time, the network of global corporate control is a huge conglomerate that was trying to hide from us, but three mathematicians, Stefania Vitali, James Glatfelder, and Stefano Battiston at the Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, Switzerland, found out that there is one company that's connected by interlocking directors on the boards of the 40,000 companies that are traded on the world's capital markets. At the center are the banks, which print paper money and get to keep the difference between what it costs to print the money and the face value of the currency. And then they charge you interest on this currency in a scam that they call country debt. Today's program will focus on the United States Armed Services and their role in this battle to take back our country from the network of global corporate control. But first, let me give you a little background. Our audience has been growing as we answer your questions. All of what is discussed on the program is backed up by hard documentation. If there's anything that you want to see the proof of, please shoot me an email at karenhudis@hotmail.com. I'm one of the people who's on the front lines in fighting the network of global corporate control. I used to be the captain of the New York University fencing team, and the martial arts certainly have come in handy. My Hungarian fencing coach taught me to focus when my opponent attacks because that is how you score. I'm the lawyer for the world's gold. How did I get to be the lawyer for the world's gold? Because I worked in the World Bank legal department for 21 years. I was fired when I went to the United States Congress to complain about the corruption in the World Bank. The World Bank and International Monetary Fund were created to administer the world's monetary gold reserves. I'm working with 188 ministers of finance and development on the board of governors of the World Bank and IMF and the rest of the world's people to carve up that network of global corporate control into little pieces. And I'm showing you now a slide of our octopus that we're serving up. In the previous month, we scored big time when the network of global corporate control tried to steal the gold 4 times, and we shot them down each time and exposed these crooks to even more people. You can go look up the previous episodes on YouTube to hear what the crooks tried and to see their documents and to see our documents. The network of global corporate control is going down in flames. I didn't know about the gold that's at the World Bank until after I was fired, but I did know that it was not an option to leave the corruption to fester because of a very powerful power transition model that came to the World Bank in 2003 from a political scientist, Jacek Kugler, who developed it for the Department of Defense. This model is 90 to 95% accurate because it was tested in over 300 cases at the Department of Defense. Whenever there was a difference of opinion about what would happen between the experts in the model would win. Jacek Kugler told me then, that was in 2004, that we had 5 years to prevent a nuclear war in the Middle East. We did prevent that war so far. That was in Syria. I spoke to Chuck Hagel about the power transition model in 2008 when he was senator of Nebraska. The power transition model has a lot to say about the United States military. It predicted that Germany was going to leave NATO if the U.S. military did not defend our country, instead of doing what was in the interest of the network of global corporate control. When I was interviewed for the second largest German business website, Deutsche Wirtschaftsnachrichten, they asked me about the helicopter buzzing the United States consulate in Frankfurt on September 9, 2013. An anonymous German official informed Der Spiegel that it is a shot across the bow of the Americans. The network of global corporate control has appointed Knights of Malta to betray our country. But the United States military is a lot bigger than that, and it resists corruption. A retired Marine who has a pen name of Robert O'Bannon sent me a book telling me that the loyal servicemen have our back and that they are there to help us take our country back. I have posted Robert O'Bannon's book on the internet, and I'll be happy to send the links to anyone who asks me for it. The United States has been under martial law ever since 1861, and the Secretary of the Army, John McHugh, is in charge of our monetary policy. The Federal Reserve Note is unconstitutional, and the quantitative easing is going to cause the paper currency to fail. That's why I asked that Knight of Malta, General Martin Dempsey, 3 times why the United States was not accepting the offer of gold to replace the Federal Reserve notes during his town hall meetings, and he ducked the questions 3 times, in December 2013, in March 2014, and again in March 2015. My question, with the Federal Reserve note weakening against other currencies, with 25% of international trade no longer denominated in U.S. dollars, and the United States credit rating on the verge of being lowered by the new Universal Credit Rating Group, do you think it's time to accept the offer of the authorized signatory to the Global Collateral Account to release the uncut dollars issued by the United States Treasury Department and back them with the 170,500 metric tons of gold on deposit in the Bank of Hawaii? There's nothing that will impair the United States military strength worse than a weak dollar, or the evisceration of the military's personnel policies and sacking of the 2 heroes, Major General Michael Carey and Vice Admiral Tim Giardina, who refused to nuke Charleston on October 7, 2013. In a previous show, we focused on the proof that this happened: seismographic records, eyewitness accounts of Air Force landings in Charleston's air base the night before. Do you remember Typhoon Haiyan in November 2013? That's when the U.S. military started occupying the Philippines and guarding the gold that's buried there. I received reports that some helicopters were flying out gold and falling down from the weight. I asked the Inspector General of the Marines to look into this. I could not rely on John Reimer. He is the Inspector General in the Department of Defense, because John Reimer did not investigate the broken personnel policies in the firings of those heroes, Major General Michael Carey and Vice Admiral Tim Giardina. I had been asking Chuck Hagel to get to the bottom of these problems when he was given his marching orders, and I'd like to show that cartoon of the week. That's thanking Chuck Hagel for his service. Before he left, Chuck Hagel introduced another layer of approval for a first strike. On March 16th, U.S. Navy Captain Heather Cole, who was the commander of the United States Navy's Strategic Communications Wing 1, located at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma, aborted the command for a first strike attack upon Russia. Heather Cole was arrested and relieved of her command. Now let's talk a little bit about veterans today. The media is covering up all of this information, which certainly is newsworthy. An aborted nuclear attack in Charleston, and you don't hear very much about it, although there was a question to, in the presidential elections, these upcoming presidential elections, there was one question about that raised, I believe that was to Mr. Santorum. Veterans Today removed my questions to Martin Dempsey, and all of these issues should certainly have been raised in the Senate Armed Service Committee, but these issues were ignored in the hearing for the nomination of Joseph Dunford Jr. as the new Joint Chiefs of Staff. On July 24, 2015, the Armed Service Committee approved the nomination, and now it's going to the full Senate. Japan depends upon the U.S. military for its defense, and I went to Japan last summer because I knew that it was important for the military to be able to deal with these issues outside of the chain of command. I sent an email to the defense attaché in the Tokyo mission, and he wrote back to me an unclassified email. What did I talk to him about? I talked to him about the power transition model and the fact that Germany was likely to, we were going to lose them as our ally. And what happened? You can see Germany is ready to leave the NATO alliance because of a number of things, including the fact that there has been secret spying on the Germans. They don't like that. That's not what your allies are supposed to do. Or in the case of the Board of Executive Directors, when they were firing Paul Wolfowitz for giving a huge pay raise to his girlfriend Shahriza, the Board of Executive Directors were threatened with, some of them had gone to the same House of Ill Repute that had come into prominence when Eliot Spitzer was fired as the governor of New York. And when I reported this to the United States Treasury, again, it was covered up. So that's how the United States is losing its leadership. That's how the United States lost its gentleman's agreement to the right to appoint, without having to gain any approval, to appoint the president of the World Bank. The United States lost the gentleman's agreement in 2010. That's what the power transition model predicted. There is now a coalition for the rule of law, and that model, which is 90% accurate, has been predicting that we would have this coalition. Ever since I got my statement up on the UK Parliament website, I also got my statement up on the European Parliament's website. So that means that we have got, and who is we? It is from the top center of the international financial system all the way to the bottom, to the citizens that are now listening to these programs, looking at them on the internet, raising questions, and that's a very good thing. I'm happy to answer any questions and to provide backup documentation. We've now been doing this for, we've put 8 issues of our series up, and we're going to be putting another 4 series up very shortly. We do that at the end of every month. And you can see on YouTube there are a number of questions that are raised, and we answer them because we are going to be transparent in our global currency reset. And we're also, I've been consulted by members of the military who call me up on my cell phone and tell me one thing or another, and I ask them, I asked one of these officers, how many people in the military know about this corruption that we're talking about? And this was this conversation I had almost a year ago, and they told me it was about 50%. So those Knights of Malta at the very top of the military that think they can just drive the entire United States into a ditch, it's not working for you. It's not working for you whatsoever, because we're on to you. And the United States is going to stand strong, and its military is going to stand strong, and we're going to be backed by currency that's filled with gold. We're not going to be relying on unconstitutional Federal Reserve notes that were designed to crash. In another 2 weeks, we'll be talking about how the paper currencies always crash, and how since July 2013, the price of gold for immediate delivery has been higher than the price of gold for future delivery. That means gold backwardation. That means paper currencies are very, very weak. And the United States currency is not the Federal Reserve note. The United States currency is the gold that is on deposit in the World Bank and IMF, and which is administered by the Board of Governors of the World Bank and the IMF, not administered by the network of global corporate control. That network doesn't own the gold. The Fed does not own the gold. The U.S. Treasury Department does not own the gold. We had a notarial protest in February of 2015. where it was very clear that the gold is in the global debt facility, which I am the lawyer for. I have the signature authority, and I have the approval of the Board of Governors, which knows that I'm simply there to give the countries and people of the world voice. Sometimes I present a cartoon, which I'll give to the staff at DCTV, who have been backstopping me on all of this. It shows a telephone switchboard operator, and that's actually the function that I have. I'm simply trying to get the information from the very heart of the international financial system to the people, and the information from the people to the center. And you can see from the picture showing how the people in Japan are not simply accepting what's going on. They're depending on the United States military to defend them. They're the ones that are right in the middle of the catastrophe in Fukushima. That's one of the things that the wealth in the global debt facility is going to be used for. And the other thing is to put gold inside the currencies of all the nations. We're not talking about a one world order whatsoever, because the role of the Bretton Woods institutions is not going to be to intrude in the decisions that the people are going to be making in their individual countries. And one of the most important aspects of the global currency reset is local currencies. These are going to be issued in the villages and towns. That creates full employment, and we've started sharing some of the information that different communities, their different approaches. We're going to have a lot of sharing of information, and the most important thing that individuals can do who want to be part of the global currency reset is for them to form discussion groups in their neighborhoods and their villages. Doesn't have to be a lot of people. As a matter of fact, it shouldn't be, because you want to be working together for the duration and sifting through the various information and making your decisions. You're going to have a lot of decisions to make, and it's going to be you who's going to be making those decisions, not at the center. It's not going to be like the network of global corporate control, where you have one person in the central control booth feeding orders to up and down the line. No, it's going to be a bottom-up approach, and all that the people at the Bretton Woods institutions are going to be doing is they're going to be making sure that the gold does not get stolen, that there's proper accounting, and we're going to have our hands full with that. Just those simple things, because as I'm going to be mentioning, or I just mentioned actually today, we're briefing this, taping this on July 28th, and we were talking about the accounting profession. They've been allowing their brethren to simply cook the books for any of the companies in the network of global corporate control, and they have disgraced themselves from top to bottom of that profession. We've talked about the International Organization of Supreme Audit Institutions. I can show you the correspondence that I've had with them. This has just been a travesty. So we're going to be having our hands full in just simply getting the world's gold into the world's currency. There won't be any more interest charged on bogus country debt. We talked in a previous segment about what this Greek debt problem is. That is just simply a way of enslaving the people of Greece, making them commit suicide. We're not going to be perpetuating that system. And it's very clear that we have a coalition for the rule of law that is not going to be tolerating this kind of theft. We're going to have a break, and we'll be right back after a public service announcement from the DCTV.
3, 2. DCTV is not your ordinary television station. We are a membership community of people, just like you.
Grandmas, teachers, tastemakers, artists, leaders, students, activists, and enthusiasts who are learning, creating, and sharing media through a platform built to empower you to express yourself.
You can take one of our media training courses where you can learn things like producing, videography, how to edit video, or operate a television studio. We put the power of media in your hands with unprecedented access to state-of-the-art media facilities and equipment. You can get your hands on HD cameras, produce a show in one of our fully equipped studios, or edit your projects in a private suite.
Unleash your voice and be heard by airing your self-produced programs on one of our 7, yes, 7 cable channels.
DCTV is more than just television. We will be your cheerleader, your advocate, your mentor, and your motivator.
We are your voice. We are your network. Join us at dctv.org.
I've left some of the most difficult issues for the remaining 5 minutes of this segment. The first thing I want to talk about is that it's very important during this transition that we maintain the peace, that we're going to have a very fundamental change, and the only way that we can have this change successful is if everybody cooperates. In one of the earlier segments, we talked about when a sailboat comes about, the crew has got to shift to the other side of the boat or the boat will capsize. And one of the cartoons that I showed showed that we are actually all in one boat. It showed that there was a hole in the bottom of the boat, and 2 of the people at the high part of the boat said, we're lucky that the hole isn't at our side. So this means that we do have a way of maintaining peace. In the United States, that's just the regular municipal police. They're all, in the United States, we have a group called the Major Cities Police Officers Association, and the president of that organization is from Montgomery County, Maryland, which is where I live. So what I'm asking, and what everyone who's working with the Coalition for the Rule of Law is asking, is that you give people the benefit of the doubt. We're going to have a long transition as we tackle the corruption systematically from top to bottom of our international financial system. This does not mean that we're going to be throwing people in jail. We don't know where the head of the snake was. There's a lot of information that's hidden, and I'm not saying that that people should be forgiven. I'm saying that there should be no violence, and I'm saying that that we will need to, all of us, recognize that we are our brother's keepers. So that's the first thing, but actually the most difficult subject to talk about is some very powerful technology that's in the Department of Defense. They have learned very cleverly, human beings are, we operate through radio waves. There's something called extremely low frequency. Everybody has their own signal, and that signal can be intercepted, and as a form of remote hypnosis, stray thoughts can come into people's minds that have actually been using this very accurate technology that the Department of Defense has. We can be, the things that we see can be picked up, and people at a remote post can see what it is that we see. It sounds preposterous, but if you do a little bit of research, you'll find out that this is exactly what I'm telling you. And we're going to have to find a way of dismantling this technology. We don't even know half of the capabilities that are in this extremely low frequency. But we do know from people that have been tortured with it what it feels like. And there's going to be one of the difficult things we're going to have to be dealing with is how to compensate the victims, but more importantly, how we can all regain our health. There are some other things that we've been raising in previous broadcasts about cures for diseases that were kept from us, cures for cancer, some terrible problems that people have with vaccinations. There's a lot of information that we're going to be sharing and that we're going to have to be coming to grips with. I'm being told that it's now time to end this broadcast, so I wanted to thank you for listening to another segment of the Network of Global Corporate Control. We've discussed the way that the Network of Global Corporate Control has been trying to unilaterally surrender the United States military through debasing the Federal Reserve notes and putting Knights of Malta in command. This is not working out for the Network of Global Corporate Control. It's exposing them and further mobilizing resistance against them. As a matter of fact, the resistance is so strong that the Network of Global Corporate Control has become weak and impotent. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Hudis. Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis, and this show is the 17th segment in the series on the Network of Global Corporate Control. If this is your first show, this is a good place to start because today's program is about gold. I'm the lawyer for the world's monetary gold reserves. The world's gold, other precious metals, gems, and artwork is held in a trust called the Global Debt Facility that is administered by the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. How did I get to be the lawyer for the world's monetary gold reserves? Ibrahim Shihada, who was the lawyer for the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, hired me into the World Bank. He was one of the leaders of the Group of 77, which is actually 133 developing countries. They are called the Group of 77 because Ferdinand Marcos established that group in 1977. In 1976, as a second-year law student at Yale Law School, I studied how the Group of 77 was forming, and I wrote an article about that coalition. You can read that article, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions if you send an email to me at karenhudis@hotmail.com. Who established the Global Debt Facility, and what is this trust for? Jose Rizal established this trust for the world's peoples. Now you're wondering, who is Jose Rizal? He's the son of Prince Julian Macleod Talano of the Philippines. And if you're wondering who Prince Julian Macleod Talano was, he was the twin of Queen Victoria. Jose Rizal became the Superior General of the Jesuits from 1942 to 1946. Jose Rizal shipped the gold to Singapore, had it melted down and stamped with the name of the trust, which is TVM LSM 666. TVM and LSM are the initials of Ferdinand Marcos's sons, and there's been a fair number of questions about the meaning of 666. If you're into gematria, which is the study of the meaning of numbers, then 666 is actually three numbers, 600, 60, and 6, And those numbers all represent humanity. It was the lawyer for the global debt facility was Ferdinand Marcos, and he put the assets into the global debt facility, and he was the moving force behind the establishment of the World Bank and the IMF, which administer this trust. The gold in the global debt facility was sequestered. That's a legal term for put into hiding, and it was sequestered for 50 years under a concept called the Statute of Limitations. And Carmen, I'd like it if you could put that cartoon of the Statute of Limitations up for people to see. And I also want to thank the people at DCTV who have been doing a magnificent job backstopping for this series. We're going to be on for another 12 segments, I'm happy to say. So let's look at this picture a little bit. It's talking about resurrecting the claims of the slaves that our President Jefferson had a relationship with. And the point about the statute of limitations is that claims become stale. You don't have witnesses. So that's why you see the skeleton sitting there. Or the documents are no longer, you can't really tell whether the documents are valid or not, for the simple reason that the people who wrote those documents aren't there to testify about them. So it's very easy to falsify them. That's what the statute of limitations means, and it was very explicit that the gold in the global debt facility was put into hiding for 50 years so that at the end of the 50-year period, when the gold came out of hiding, there would be no claims, the claims would not be valid, and we could just get on at the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF, we could get on with what was going to happen to that gold. And that hasn't really stopped the Network of Global Corporate Control or the Committee of 300 or even one of Ferdinand Marcos's sons, who are all now raising competing claims. But these claims are stale, they're not valid, and the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF has simply nullified them. The International Court of Justice brought a claim like that. The CIA issued a document based on the International Court of Justice, and we've just invalidated those claims. And the Board of Governors is very much involved in all of what's going on because they understand their role. There are 6 executive directors on the board of the World Bank that have the signature authority, and the board has also given me that signature authority. You can see that in some of the documents that I've been tweeting. And the reason that the Board of Governors has given me that authority is because they know that I will not exercise it until I have the prior approval of the Board of Governors. And that's time and time again, people have been asking me to sign this and that, and I've simply refused. We have a letter of intent which sets up what the criteria are going to be. We're going to have complete transparency. We're going to audit all of the wealth in the global debt facility so that it's not going to be stolen. There's also been some claims that some of the gold, which is in the Philippines, has been flown away in military helicopters that are falling because gold is very heavy. And this gold is insured, and we've put in claims to Lloyd's and Lincoln Insurance Company, which are 2 of the companies that insure this gold. And what the Board of Governors has decided to do with the world's gold is they're going to use it to mint currencies. All of the different currencies are going to be put into something called aurum, which is pressing the gold very thin. And Carmen, I was hoping you could run, yeah, that's it. Now what you see there is a picture, which is just any old picture. The countries themselves are going to decide what the denominations are of the aurum. They're going to put the pictures on it that they want. I've been having some discussions with Rona Sepp, who's the president of the Mint Council. She works for the American Federation of Government Employees. I've been talking to the county executives of America about accepting the gold that belongs to the United States, that's been allocated to the United States. And I've also written to all of the different countries. I get questions from many people asking me to show them what person in their country is in charge. And of course, many of the people are now getting in touch with the executive directors at the World Bank. It got so out of hand that the webmaster had to hide the websites of the executive directors. We talked about that in our previous segment. So the situation that we now have is that people understand that the World Bank and IMF Board of Governors are in charge of the world's gold, and that's a very good thing that this secrecy has ended. That means that we're going to be able to get on with something called the global currency reset. How much gold is in the global debt facility? I can tell you the number that I've seen from the documents. It's over 1 million metric tons. It's the number I've seen is 1,700,000, but we're going to have to look into that to see exactly how much gold we're talking about. A lot of it is in the Central Bank of the Philippines. Some of it is buried in the Philippines. There are smaller token amounts that are in some of the banks. What most of the banks have is they have certificates saying that they're entitled to a certain amount of gold, which will be shipped to them. And when people argue about how much gold there is, they talk about how difficult it is to mine the gold, and we couldn't possibly have those quantities. That's because people are confused about how long our history is. And so I wanted to ask that we show that Hapgood Map. This is a map that was discovered in Turkey in the 1500s, and it shows the coastline of Antarctica very accurately. Now you can't find that coastline because it's hidden by ice, but the military has used radar to find that the map tracks the coastline very accurately. So this shows that our history stretches back to the previous ice age, and that there was a cartographer who was able to accurately draw the coastline. So we're talking about much more gold than people know about, and we know where it is, and we're going to get on with the business of converting our paper currencies into aurum. I filed a notarial protest, which is it's a way to determine who really owns the gold. The Federal Reserve, which is a private bank and which is part of the network of global corporate control, and the U.S. Treasury Department do not have the U.S. monetary gold reserves. And that's what the notarial protest shows. After that protest was filed, that was back in February, whenever the Treasury Department or Federal Reserve claim that they're holding monetary gold reserves, that is postal fraud. So they're liars. And it's very important that we now focus on the global currency reset, because we are facing a very serious threat that's called gold backwardation. Well, gold backwardation is a problem, but what's a bigger problem is permanent gold backwardation. What does gold backwardation mean? It's a technical term that the gold traders use. It simply means that the price of gold for immediate delivery is higher than the price of gold in the future. And what it shows when gold goes into backwardation, it shows that we are losing confidence in paper currencies. Gold went into backwardation in July of 2013, and it has stayed in backwardation since then. When that happened, the gold traders got in touch with me because they knew what that meant, and they were very concerned. When gold went into backwardation in 1971, that was when the Federal Reserve note was decoupled and could no longer be exchanged for gold. My news isn't in the mainstream media because the mainstream media is owned by the network of global corporate control. And what I'm telling you is being censored. The first people in the alternative media who started publicizing my story were the gold traders. And on the 6th of May in 2013, Takoya da Silva ran a very good story. And as I mentioned, it was in July of 2013 that gold leasing ended. That happened because the cost of the lease was too high, because of the risk that the gold would be returned was too great, and the cost of the lease was prohibitive. We now have something called COMEX. That was an invention from Wall Street. Wall Street has a way of inventing things like derivatives. COMEX is short for commodity exchange. And what that is instead of buying the physical gold, you can buy shares of a company or a commodity exchange which supposedly holds the gold for you. But when you buy the shares and you read what's written on the very bottom line, you see that you're not entitled to any gold. And what's been happening since gold went into backwardation is the amount of gold in the COMEX has fallen precipitously. And you see the picture there showing how much that's fallen.